Guys, as promised, we here. The very first time I saw Mr. Khader at YWCA, he said to me, Drew, if it matters to you,
It matters to Mike.
it matters to Mike. And every time I see him, regardless of which interview is it, we gotta use that line. Because it is true. Okay?
It's important.
It's important. We might disagree, maybe things that I'd like to be going a little faster might not, but that's normal. But if it matters to me, it matters to you.
And I thank you for that, Ben, because, sometimes when we're able to disagree on an issue, we still have that basic foundation of being transparent and, bringing people to bringing information and quality information to the residents of Yonkers.
So, Mike, how long has it been since you were elected?
I took office, it's been about a year and a half right now. So it was January of 2018, and right now we're July, halfway through the year, so we're about 18 months in.
How has it been? It is what you expect it to be?
Yes and no. There are certain things that you expect. There was a learning curve. I had to walk into this office. I had to learn how to turn on the lights. But I expected that. I always find that running for office without political experience, there's benefit to that, and sometimes it does make things harder because coming from the private sector, things are just done different. When I found that when people say government operates different and things take longer, that is actually true. The relationships that I build, and I try to improve and build on more relationships, sometimes for political reasons it doesn't work. There was an old adage, and I'm not sure who said it, so whoever said it should get the credit. In politics, there's no permanent friends, there's no permanent enemies, there's just, I'm screwing up, for convenience. Sometimes governance and politics relationships are based on convenience.
But sometimes to a certain point, you have to understand that, because you have to negotiate. Sometimes you have to deal with this one, you have to deal with that one. You must reach agreements between, across your political ideology. So it's normal. Now, Mike, when you are running your platform and you make some not claims, lack of a better word, certain things you promised, we talk about issues, education, crime, police, all those things. What have you accomplished through your election?
Well, one, with the education, there's so many things that have been accomplished, and there's things that are, that we're continuing to work on. Many times, and then before we get into that, one of the difficulties that I did find is that, many people don't understand what the council president, city council are doing, and that's a basic premise. And the way Yonkers government is set up, it's set up in the federal government between the president and Congress, set up in the state between the governor and the state legislator, with the county executive and the county legislators, and in city government, you get a mayor and you get the legislator. The job of the city council is we try to find consensus and pass policy. We pass local laws, ordinances, or resolutions. And once we pass that, it goes to the mayor for signature. And then it's for that process to be implemented. So many times, many of the complaints that we get, or many times, even you'll get, are not policy issues, they're operational issues. So what we try to do is we filter through them and we say, okay, here's a complaint, here's an issue. Is there already a law, a policy in the books where we could just send an email and say we need enforcement of this issue? Or option two, we need to create a law for this issue. And I'll give you a perfect example. The rats. You and I were...
I was going to talk.
No, so
it's good.
Yeah, so I'm giving you, and this isn't a perfect, I'll give you two examples of something wasn't on the books that I'm working on creating, and something that was on the books. So, and the rat issue. We're well aware there's a major issue, and it's not in a particular neighborhood. It's pretty much the whole southwestern corridor. So I did a history on it, and it wasn't just one issue. It wasn't, well, we have rats and we got to get an exterminator or pest control. there were several issues that were going on and what created this infestation. And that's exactly what it is. So, for one, as we're talking, and I was actually speaking to the mayor about this, and he agrees that it's a concern, and we're working together on drafting. So our pest mitigation plan is something that's multifactorial. It's going to require working with the Community Development Association, securing funding to get full-time pest control. And what they're going to do is not just your typical exterminator and bait. We're going to go around, well, not when I say we, whoever we hire, to go around and fill these holes. I don't know if you remember when we were on Post and Ellie, we were walking, we literally saw these craters with these little cracks in the sidewalk, and they need to be filled. So that's issue number one. Number two, the way garbage is stored. Inherently, rats feed off garbage. That's just the way it is. And we could go to any neighborhood and we'll see that garbage piles up. Or many times they trash garbage on the floor. We need to create policy, a law on the way garbage is stored. What you see so many times, what I saw, and I even just took pictures that way when I speak to my colleagues on the council, are you can't get a 6-family or a 12-family house and get a couple of Rubbermaid, 5-gallon garbage. Sometimes you gotta get these containers, these 6-yard, 8-yard containers to put garbage in. And also, one of the biggest issues, we need residents to take care of their neighborhood. Ben, I think in maybe a few months ago, I think it was on your website, we saw rats fighting over a slice of pizza in the middle of Getty Square.
Those rats don't mess around. Let me tell you, I've been seeing the same rat back and forth. I saw him on South Broadway the other day.
That's his block. He took his block. But no, we're making a joke about it. But
it's a serious matter.
Yeah, it's a serious matter. So the reason why I give you this is, one, so you see there's several issues with it. So yes, we could, as a city council, we could pass laws to ensure that we have better receptacles. Some containers they're called, where you put them in these metal boxes. We could make sure that we get the right pest control to get some trouble spots. But ultimately, it's also the residents' responsibility. We're talking about blocks. We need people to take care of their own neighborhood also. You can't legislate bad behavior.
Mike, let me interrupt you
Sure.
here and there in order to have a good engagement.
Yeah.
I think you can create policies. I think you can create laws. But the most difficult part is something that you cannot do. And that's mindset.
We're saying the same thing when I said bad behavior.
Yes, definitely.
Habit. What was it? The habit. And many times we get a lot of calls and complaints, and there is, always room for improvement. As I sit here, and whoever's following or is going to follow later, my office, my mindset is, I don't dictate. I see what's going on, and either we take action on laws already on the book, or we create laws on the book. And I recognize that this is an issue, and it's an issue that didn't happen overnight. It takes time. Residents need to be there has to be accountability on our residents here, and there's also a component of education. There's also a health. Never mind, it's disgusting. There's also a health factor in having these rats roaming the streets. We made the joke about the rat on South Broadway. I remember growing up, not too far away from here, and if you turned on the lights, that's when you might see a rat or a roach turn on. But now, if you got infestation in the broad daylight, they're running wild. But this is a serious issue. It's a priority for me. I spoke to some of my colleagues on the council. I spoke to the administration. They recognize it's a policy, and we're going to be rolling something out that has multifactorial issues. It's not a one, we need to do this and the problem goes away. But I'm looking toward, I need their help with this.
So guys, let's also be part of the solution. We are a very important component in resolving the rodents issue. Yes, council can pass laws, policies can be created, but you must be also do your part. Put your garbage in secure garbage cans. Don't throw pizza or food on the floor, because after all, you live in those areas and you must do your part. So be part of the solution, not just part of the complainer complaining.
Well, listen, a lot of times when and you get the comments, being complaining or angry, frustrated, some sarcasm, sometimes it's justified. But I always say, and I tell my colleagues also, is identifying problems is easy.
Yeah,
You know,
solution
I mean,
is. Well,
you know-
that's why we have you, Mike.
No. You're giving me too
You-
much credit
no,
than I
Mike,
deserve.
You see, we elected you and all the elected officials to find solutions. It's easy for me to say, Mike, I have a problem here, I have a problem there, this, and we need solutions. It's easy for me to identify. The difficult part is to find the solution and implement the solution.
Well,
That's when bright people like you come into play.
No, thank you, and we're trying. It's so, a question that you could ask is, well, Mike, it's been 16 months, 17 months, how come it's done? Because we got to find the right solution for the problem. Just hiring an exterminator doesn't solve the problem. Making, tenants or property owners just get a better garbage can is not going to be the problem. Or education alone is not going to be the problem. There's several different silos that need to work together. Another factor that's going to be in that is, again, we have to build support. We always need, to pass a law, we need 4. As we're well aware, there's several development projects, commercial development, but also there's a lot of smaller, non-commercial property where houses get raised, they get knocked down or built. What we're going to ask is that the planning department, whoever's going to either knock down a house or a property or build up, they need to have a pest mitigation in their plan. So it's one thing. So Ben, right now we have a problem and we're going to tackle it, working together between the city council passing some policy, the executive who implements that policy, but also going forward whenever there's new properties, new mega developments coming forward. For example, be it the Chicken Island project when that comes down, or eventually something might be going down by the Ludlow station, or just the homeowner that wants to knock down the 3-family house. Going forward, we need integrated pest management. So many times before they get shovel ready, it goes before the planning board, it goes before the zoning board, and one of the factors are going to be is what's going to be your integrated pest management problem. You're digging up dirt, rats are going to come out. How are you going to tackle that? So this is going to be one of those factors also. So we put responsibility on the council, we put responsibility on landlords, we also got to put responsibility on the developers.
All right, Mike, now we have a series of subjects that we want to talk.
Sure.
But just came a question from Maddie Dimery Shatton Walker.
Okay.
The question is not about rats,
Okay.
but the question is about what's going on in Yonkers? What about black police presence in our community? Let me just add this. Guys, I'm asking questions that I really don't know if this is something that has to do with the council president, because I'm not well informed, and I'm sure that many of you are in the same situation. So we're going to ask questions that the council president has an answer for it, and if he doesn't, then those questions will be addressed at the later time.
Well, yeah. So pretty much when
Lack of-
diversity,
Diversity.
in our police force.
Not just in our police force, but also in high-ranking levels within the police force. We don't see the black lieutenants, we don't see black captains, we don't see none of that.
Okay. Well, here's what these type of personnel questions go back to the executive. All department heads are hired or recommended by the mayor, and it comes to city council for approval. However, but using that particular example with the police, there is civil, there's exams, and then they get ranked. I do know that many members of this council do want to encourage, better diversity recruitment. I know diversity recruitment is important for the administration. What the exact numbers are, I just don't have that. The numbers off the top of my hand. If Maddie's willing to leave contact information, we could get the statistics for the current hiring and past hiring on the police department.
So guys, don't forget, in regards to police department, you have to take a test, okay? And you have to pass the test. You have to meet the criteria in order to be accepted in the police department.
Many people pass. It is so competitive that, getting 100 or a 95 isn't a guarantee. What I do know the process is you got to pass down background check, you got to pass a physical test, there's a process. And from what I'm being told, there is no discretionary. There's a requirement, there's a list, the list requires, and and that's how it's determined.
And you cannot be hiring police officers just because you're black or you're Latino.
No, you can't do that. And this goes back to the previous council of what the role of the council president do. We're not involved with the personnel hiring or firing. The only thing when it comes to the department heads, again, just like every executive at any level of government, they recommend the department head, it comes to the city council, and the city council either votes yes or no for the recommendation of that department head.
Now let's move into parks. Okay, you and I visited the park right here in Yonkers.
Mm-hmm.
There is actually an issue with that park in regards to liability, the way the park is, the ground and all that. And you were going to bring this to the attention of the council, I believe?
Well, no, okay, so, and I remember that. I think that was last fall.
Yes.
I forget what, it was in the fall. Now, here is, and it's Pitkin Park, right there on the corner.
By the Luther King School.
Pitkin Park. A lot of times now, all parks fall within the park department. And then within Parks Department, they have a maintenance unit. And I think it's important that, and I was actually surprised about this myself. When we talk about maintenance, there's different ways you talk about repairs or cleaning. So right now, generally speaking, what they do are extremely light repairs. They take out the garbage or some mowing or taking off weeds. When it comes to, and I want to use that park for particular because we spoke about it. In that park, there was a retaining wall that was capstan, and then we also had that rubber mat area that was popping up. Those were the two things that jumped out. There was a wall that was in the back that was a safety issue.
Exactly.
And the tripping hazard of
that rubber mat.
Yeah, which is really which is supposed to be for if a child falls or somebody falls.
Pushing things.
So things like that don't fall within the general maintenance of the Parks Department. It doesn't fall within their operating budget. What happens is there's an important component of every budget called CIP, Capital Improvement Projects. That's how things work. So if the answer was, Ben, it's been, Khader, you were at that park with me, and I believe it was a resident that lives in the neighborhood. Yeah, and
a lady.
And I think her daughter
exactly
tripped or something. And I think that's what spurned the visit over there. So if you said, Khader, it's been 8 months. Why the hell haven't you done anything? It's because the CIP process, the capital improvement process, is long. And here's how it goes. Many times, council members and the mayor, there's a list, and the list is somewhere. We just recently voted on it in our last budget process. In that list, these major improvements go into the capital improvement project. Because fixing a wall or fixing the playground or the apparatus, it's not maintenance. It's an expensive process that needs to get voted on, and more importantly, we need to secure funding for it.
But Mike, perception.
So hold on. So with this particular at Pitkin Park, and I spoke to the commissioner. I haven't, last month. I haven't seen him since we left out. But the funding to improve, to fix that retaining wall and that playground was secured, and it will be worked on. Unfortunately, again, in private sector, you have a broken wall, go get a contractor, go fix it. Again, everything is it's frustrating.
Government is different.
Yes.
But Mike, you know that perception sometimes becomes reality to many of us.
Correct.
Okay. Many of us don't know exactly how the politics at the higher level work. All that I know is I have a problem. My kid is my council president. Mayor Spano is my mayor, and I'm having a problem. It's not getting fixed. I don't know if it falls into your lap or it falls into the mayor's lap. Now, in the parks, still talk about the parks. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not alleging that's the case. But many people from South Broadway or down, Getty Square area, they feel like the parks on East Yonkers or by Central Avenue are not in the same conditions as the parks in low-income area. Is this true? As far as you know, is it true? Is that a correct perception or erroneous?
I think, it's a perception, and in certain parks, there's certain dilapidated parks in the city. Not just in South Yonkers, and even that I wouldn't want to have my own children. I try to bring my children around that I want to have them play with. Some of the older parks that need a little TLC or major repair. And when I say major, capital improvement repair, are in the older part of the city. So yeah, there is some accuracy in that, and you can't disagree with facts. Some of the older parks are in the southwest part of the city. The southwest part of the city needs more attention. Also, the southwest part there's more people. More people are using the parks, and there's the wear and tear and stuff. So I'm not going to disagree with that. So going back, and you made an important comment: is it the city council or is it the mayor? It's not necessarily the council or the mayor. When the council comes, going back, you said this CIP is a very important structure. What the mayor will look for is, we call it, a wish list. Here's all the things that we want to improve on, or here's all the projects that we want to work on. It could be from schools to buying property to, to paving roads to fixing parks, and we negotiate back and forth, and we make sure that there's a list over there. So when the mayor comes, and this is part of the budget process. We have 2 public hearings on it. Unfortunately, a lot of people just don't show up. Just a lot of people just don't show up. And when they, we had hearings on this. We had a special meeting about the capital improvement project, and it's a little disheartening when no one shows up. What I always find is the people that don't participate in governance many times are the ones that are making the most noise.
So let me take this opportunity to say something, guys. Complaining on social media don't always get the results that you might wish for. Yes, it gets the exposure, people know about it, but you need to come to the meetings, to the council meetings, and participate. Talk about your issues, talk about the things that you see important. But Mike, now we need to move to another subject, unless you have something else to say.
And that's important. I remember one of the first actions that I did was I created the resolution for Facebook Live. And again, a lot of people, and we spoke about it before, so I don't want to take that. So I'm glad that there's better engagement, for the city council meetings. I get criticized, sometimes I get commended, but you expect that. This is a profession, public service that I chose. However, many times, if people understood the process, it's important. So yeah, they're frustrated, they're angry, and some of their frustration and anger is justified. You have a right to be disappointed. But also, you can't be part of the solution and part of the problem. It's either, okay, let's sit down, let's work together. If you have a better, we just spoke about rats, or we spoke about whatever issues that we're going to talk about. My office is always open. There's 6 other council members that represent, district-wide in the city. I know, speaking to the mayor, he takes these, he's all other elected citywide. When we talk about certain issues, he takes it serious. Mayor, we got to do something with the parks, we got to do something with the rats, or whatever the issue is.
Mike, now let's move into something else. Yeah. We have a question here from Richard Schmidt. Guys, you get to know my accent, so I apologize if I'm saying those names wrong. Richard Schmidt. This is his question.
Sure.
What about the proposed welfare hotels that for South Broadway? Now, I'm not saying they are welfare hotels. I'm asking the question as the question is coming in.
Okay, no.
What do you know about it?
Okay, right now the city council in late spring, early summer passed a resolution, and about a month ago we secured funding. What we're going to do is an economic feasibility study for the South Broadway corridor. What we're trying to see is what's the best way, or what's the best economic development on the South Broadway corridor. So there's not necessarily something about these welfare hotels or the stigma that comes with these hotels. What we want to be able to do is, right now we have a South Broadway bid, and I think that they're doing a great job in trying to repurpose the corridor. And maybe the best way is we got an outside consulting company. They're going to prepare a written report. Here's the best way for economic development in this corridor, and it's not targeting any one industry. It's what's best. South Broadway is an important street. The city of Yonkers cannot succeed without South Broadway not succeeding also. That's why we recently secured that funding, and we're looking forward. And I promise you, once that report comes out from the feasibility study and a master plan for that, and they give recommendations. Here's what's good. Here's what might work. Here's what won't work. Can't wait to share it with you.
Good enough. We will be waiting. Now, as we wait for another question, I have to ask you this. Just as a filler, we're going to get the conversation going. We just had the budget passed not long ago.
June something.
June. The only vote against it was yours. I don't know if I should commend you for that. I don't know if I should be upset, happy, but you wouldn't know. Why?
Well, I voted no for the budget, and I gave a brief example that night. And many times how the budget process works. It happened the last two times, and it's going to happen next April 15th when the mayor gives his proposed budget. Many times, when you're dealing with a $1.2 billion budget, there are going to be things in there that you do like. For example, I love the fact that there was a proposal to increase $12 million for the maintenance of effort for the school children. Now, Ben, what that means, that's significant. Because you got to think about it. One percentage sales tax. When we hear, real estate tax. When you hear there's a 1% increase, 1% increase is close to about $3.6 million. Right? About 3.6 million. It equals 1% of property tax. So if you double it, that's about $7.2 million. 2%. Add another $3 million. So we gave an increase in the maintenance of effort almost 3%. Give or take. So I was very happy with that, and I commended that. We also, in this budget process, secured funding from the CIP. Here, going back, it's a very important part of the budget process, where we secured funding for the old St. Denis School on McLean Avenue, closer to where Pelton Park is. There used to be a St. Denis School. So there are positive things in this budget. There were things that I wasn't crazy about. One of the biggest ones were, raising fees, and particularly, an increase in a 6.5% in water.
Water. I was going to ask you this water thing.
Yeah,
a lot of people are not understanding and getting it.
Okay, the way the water does is, we buy our water from New York City, and they send us a bill. And I get that. And many times, there's an increase. We have no negotiation price. So we can't negotiate. Well, we're using this, this amount. Yeah, we can't bargain. We get a rate if we use under a certain amount of water, and the rate, which is set by New York City, increases if we pass a certain amount of water usage. So when they say, save water saves money, there's actually some truth to that. However, in Yonkers, we have something called a separate fund called the water fund. And in that water fund, it's my fundamental belief that there was enough money in there where it could have offset the cost of an increase. So I was prepared to vote yes on the budget if there were certain conditions that were met. And when I say conditions, you negotiate. We've been saying that, certain things, you get this, you get that, when I recognize that, that the water rates were going to go up, that's something that I couldn't support in good conscience.
Now, let's just another question came in from Laura Case. Laura asks this: what will the city do to create or preserve truly affordable housing in the face of development, rising costs?
Okay. Well, right now the city of Yonkers has a 10% affordable housing ordinance. We're still in our legislative term. We're down. Me and I believe another council member, we introduced legislation for affordable housing for the new development. We weren't able to get consensus. We did have a committee meeting on it, and it remained in committee. It will be my goal to at least see that increase. But again, the affordable housing pertaining to Yonkers, there's many variables. What percentage goes up? What is the AMI are we going to use? The average market rate of income. Do we use the average income of Yonkers residents or county-based residents? And there's different philosophies on what benefits what. So 100% to Ms. Case for asking that question. We need to do more for affordable housing. There's a shortage. And what we need to make sure, as we're trying to recruit people from Brooklyn, Queens, and New York City coming here, we have to make sure that our current residents aren't priced out of their neighborhood.
Now, a question from Carolyn Elizabeth Marie. What is the council president's opinion on the elected school board? Is he in favor of one for the city of Yonkers?
Okay. My position on that is a school board without taxing authority is not going to be the intended result. And is she still on there?
Carolyn still here.
Can she hear what I'm saying?
Carolyn, can you hear? Just say, post a comment if you can hear or not. But I would assume so because
Okay.
people are.
I will let you. What is the purpose of the elected school board? That's because I'm not convinced that the elected school board is the way to
She
go.
said she can hear.
Okay, perfect. So, Carolyn, my children attend the Yonkers public schools, and I've been almost to a detriment to mine, where sometimes being critical is a double-edged sword, and I'm not happy with the current structure. I think there is room for improvement, but I'm not convinced that an elected school board will solve the problem. And Carolyn, thank you for asking that question. It's an important issue. And the follow-up before she asks why I'm not supportive of it or why I'm reserved on that issue, an elected school board without taxing authority doesn't solve the problem.
Question from Lori Eugenio. Mr. Khader, you are doing a great job for us the people. When or would you run for mayor?
Right now, well, first of all, thank you so much. Sometimes it's good to know that, the commitment that you give to the city, it trickles down. Right now, I'm just focusing on enjoying the summer, my family, and appreciating the job that I'm doing right now. But it's good to know that I would have your vote. I appreciate the question.
But guys, I had an interview with the council president.
What was
Should
the
I
camera
say-
on for that?
Well, I'm going to pass on that. Mr. Council President, we see a lot of construction going on in Yonkers. We also see a lot of homeless in Yonkers. Many of those homeless are not because they don't have a job. Some of them have a job, but they cannot afford a place to live. I see a lot of construction going on. I see a lot of people from other places out of town working. I see a lot of trucks with the Pennsylvania State, New Jersey State going. I go to the hotels to interview them, and they're all there. What about getting the people from Yonkers in those jobs so they can afford to live in Yonkers?
Okay. Well, you mentioned a couple of issues in that one question. One, you mentioned the homelessness issue. And, if you asked me 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, I would say the homelessness issue is a county issue. And by charter, for what the county's responsible for, there's some accuracy in that.
They live in your town.
Yeah, but they live in Yonkers, and they're in front of us, so now Yonkers has to deal with the issue also, with collaboration and major assistance from the county. Then it's my belief that the homelessness is not just somebody doesn't have a roof over their head. From my experience, and I generally believe, I'm in the street, I talk to people. I don't care if you're white or black or any shade in between. Many times, the homelessness is a result of something else. I've met many people that have mental health issues, substance abuse issues, victims of domestic violence. There's always something else that precipitated the homelessness. And that's something that needs to pass. And I recognize that. I remember one of my first actions on the council, I passed a resolution urging the county to reopen some of the health clinics that were shut down under the previous county administration. So yes, they do need jobs, but then it's my general position, if somebody has a mental health issue or a substance abuse issue or needs counseling or therapy and the services are not there, you're not going to hold on to that job. So yes, there is a homelessness issue. It's in Yonkers. We need to take that. So that's one issue. Number two, concerning about job creation with the construction boom that's going down here, particularly on the Yonkers waterfront. Many times these construction deals and these pilots, they're negotiated by the IDA. I've been pretty clear that I do believe that a lot of these projects should be union jobs.
But they're not.
Yeah.
We actually had
Let's finish the answer. Let me just finish my answer.
Okay.
So, I'm already on the record that a lot of these projects should be union jobs. And a lot of these contractors, be it if you're a carpenter, an electrician, a plumber, if you're a laborer, they should be Yonkers residents. Why should we have, and I think you made reference to out of state, you see New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware, we need union jobs, union representation, and more importantly, we need the dignity of our residents here. I have a very good friend of mine. He says there's nothing more prouder than wearing a hard hat and having a cup of coffee in your neighborhood while you see development going on. And right now, I think that a lot of our residents are not part of that process.
We saw the rally, the Union Local 60, rallying in front of inside the IDA office and also here at the City Hall, complaining that most of those workers are not union workers. Now let's go to another question from Mr. John, help me, John Rivera. The question is, there is lots of vacant buildings in Yonkers. There is any way the city can step in and turn them into affordable housing?
Well, it's one, a lot of these vacant buildings are going two things, and some of them are vacant for a reason, and some of them are zombie homes. And you know what I mean when I say
Yes.
they're abandoned. Some of these buildings were bought by speculative buyers where they're just holding on to it for whatever reason. And they're paying their taxes, they're paying their insurance. Number two, a lot of these other are bank owned. They're foreclosed
Possessed, yes.
and they're holding on to it. We just can't take somebody's private property. There's eminent domain issues. Particularly, it's going to be very controversial. We have to add the fair market value and then the affordable housing. Many of the affordable housing projects that happened or are happening or are in the talks, usually they get grants from the federal and the state, and then they buy a property, and there's a collaboration with many different entities to make the project affordable. That way they could get affordable rent.
Well, Mike, I'm just a guy with a camera. I'm not
And a iPad.
in a night hat. Right here, in a night hat. I don't know much about laws, but I know about what I see. I think 30 years ago, were you still in law school, perhaps?
30 years ago, man, I was playing with Lego and Voltron.
Okay.
How old do you think I am?
32? So, right. So, 30 years ago, Mike,
Yeah.
while you were playing with Legos, Drew Ross was driving around in Yonkers and talking about the zombie houses. This is nothing compared to what it used to. Millions took over a whole bunch of buildings on South Broadway, all the way up at Carroll Avenue, and rebuilt them. What about the city gives an ultimatum to those people who own those zombie houses? Fix them or else.
Well, we're doing something, and so long as a building is not dangerous, we can't dictate. And you own a 6-family house, or
I wish.
no, or hypothetically, I own a 3-family house, an apartment building, and it's vacant. The building is, from a business sense, doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. You're paying taxes on it because it's on city pay. It's on the city tax roll. You're paying insurance on it. God forbid there's something that happens. However, where the city can get involved in is if there's a danger. And I think that the mayor, more recently, particularly in the winter and the springtime, has added, has created some legislation. Some of it's passed, some of it's still, in city council committee, where landlords have to take responsibility for these vacant homes. One of our last actions I did were because of safety issues is, and I find it as an eyesore, you see the brown plywood on some of these vacant homes. Brown, so what we did is we added plexiglass. It wasn't too far. If I said within the last 2 or 3 months, there was actually a body found not too far from here in a vacant home, and the front windows and doors had plywood on there. No one could see what's going on in there. Many times in these vacant homes, there's either a safety issue, or you have illegal activity, drug use, sex trafficking. Just illicit activity that no one wants. One of the things I help do, that's not going to stop the problem, but help combat, is create a resolution where if there's any windows or doors on the ground floor, they have to have plexiglass. That way police, firefighter, or a guy with a camera and an iPad could look in to see what's going on there. Are there squatters there? Is there drug activity there? Is it just vacant? So there are certain things the city can do when it comes to health and safety. We live, in America, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. There's a meaning. I can't tell you what to do with your property. You want to keep it vacant is one issue. The minute it becomes a safety or a public concern or a nuisance, that's when the city can step in.
Now, during your campaign for council president, you received an endorsement from the Yonkers Fire Department, 628.
Yes.
I was at at the endorsement party event right here on School Street.
I was, I'm proud of a lot of the union support that I received, certainly, Local 628 was one of the many, and
Now,
I'm very appreciative of that
when
support.
endorsements happen, I'm sure that there has been probably conversations before the endorsement, promises made, or maybe it's not the correct term, but some kind of understanding had to be made for them to choose you or not the other person. Have you fulfilled any promises? Or better yet, if you were to run today and the Union 628 knew what they know now, they knew back then, would they still endorse you? Did you fulfill the promises or understandings that were made when you got to the endorsement?
Well, I remember with the 628, one of the biggest issues, and I think, Ben, when you made reference that we met at the YWCA,
There and also on School Street.
there was a few that were doing it where it was one of these community rally. I don't know if I'm going to call it. It was like a community rally concerning the firehouse. They needed a new
Correct.
fire. And one of the things that and you used the word promise. One of the commitments I made.
Commitments, because of course you cannot promise anything.
You don't want to offer promises for support. What you want to do is you're going to have a seat at the table. You're not going to wait 1 month to see me. And one of those things is, for example, in the city council, we have committees. We have a budget committee, labor committee, environmental committee. I created a committee on labor. Many times, labor, including 628 and other labors, municipal and non-municipal, they've said, Mike, sometimes it's hard for us to be heard. Literally, we have to go meet at Dunkin' Donuts. So I said, we'll create a committee on labor, and I chair that committee on labor. And what we'll do is, whenever there's an issue that affects the masses, such as many of the layoffs of not this past budget, the last budget, many of the union heads came in, even unions that didn't support me, because I think it's important that you build bridges. There was an old quote from a former prime minister that said, "You can't shake hands with a clenched fist."
That's correct. Now,
but concerning that, we made sure that the funding, they needed more money because they were a little over budget for that firehouse. So we made sure that the funding was there.
appropriate. Well,
Yes.
we just heard from a local 628 president, Mr. Barry McGooey,
Uh-oh.
and he said, if you were to run again today, that yes, you would get the endorsement.
Thank you, Barry. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Jay Fragoso, I think, is the shop steward for the local 60
Laborers, yes.
laborers.
Hey, Jay. How are you?
Is on the line. He's in Portugal, watching from Portugal.
Jay, you should be drinking some port and sardines. What are you doing listening to me?
Hey, what's the matter you, Joe? What about police department? Funds. Did you allocate funds that would allow the police department to hire more police officers in the city of Yonkers?
Okay.
Because, hold on, because one of the problems, according to the people of the city, crime is going up, not down as the mayor reports. I'm not saying that that's not the fact. I think that the crime is going down, but it's getting more exposure because of people like me, guys with the camera. Not necessarily that crime is going up, but like I said, perception sometimes becomes reality, and they are seeing the crime in this neighborhood, that neighborhood, and all in a radius of
A mile.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Mike, of a mile.
Yeah, generally speaking, and again, I don't keep track of everything. The last couple of months there has been a slight uptick in the violent crime, and many times you're right there on the scene. I generally believe that Yonkers is a safe city. I'm not going to categorize it top 10, top 20. I feel I could walk in any neighborhood at any time of the day or night and feel fine. Many times what I see is an issue is an uptick in the quality of life issues. That's where we the double parked cars, the littering or the loud music, these quality of life issues affect how we live and where we live, and are we prideful of the neighborhood we live in? Concerning, we don't appropriate. Again, it goes back to the budget process. The mayor gives a budget to the city council. Okay, we could suggest, we could give recommendations. You know, the police unions have a great relationship with this administration, and I do not believe that there were any cuts to the Yonkers Police Department. There was just a graduation within the past week. A few weeks ago, there were some promotions, and would I like to see more foot patrols? Absolutely. I think that we need a foot patrol in the South Broadway corridor. We need a foot patrol in Getty Square, and I think that the police department, they're doing a good job. So if you look at the last 2 months, there's been there has been that uptick.
Now, Mike, you understand that most people are here are actually happy with what you do, but it's natural that you're always going to get one that might not be happy. And I always tell people, the task of pleasing everyone, it's something that I gave up a very long time ago. So here comes a question. Ask the council president about his promise not to hire people from within the family. He said he wouldn't, but he did. Okay. Is this anything that you want to tell us about it?
Ben, I think that we discussed this.
But
we
have
a question. The only hires that I personally have direct control on are the people that work in this office, and I make sure that they are the most qualified. My chief of staff worked in Albany, worked in city government for over 10 years.
For many years, nothing new.
Nothing new. Matter of fact, the only thing is it went from the second floor to the fourth floor.
Oh, that's moving up.
Yeah, moving on up. Remember the Jeffersons? So I hire somebody that's qualified, that was already in city government and understands how to navigate these waters. My communications director worked for Files and News 12 and knows how to market, sell the story, and has great relationships. My legislative writer worked in county government and understands how to draft the law and resolutions and the ordinances. I have an outreach director that is community-based. What I'm not hearing is I'm hiring unqualified people. So I just want to know what they're talking about. If there's no other person that I have direct responsibility for hiring, if that person that wants to say they're not qualified, I would love to have a discussion about their qualifications.
I agree with you. If they meet the criteria and they qualify for the job that they're doing,
the good things that you see from this office is based on the staff.
On your team.
Yeah, I'm not here 5 days a week. This staff is. Many times when you see me, when you send me, what do I say? Call up.
Correct.
Call up the office. Call my chief of
This is
staff.
not my opinion. I'm just asking.
Those are rabble-rousers that are trying to kick up some dust. And then take this to the bank. When you try to make everyone happy, you make no one happy. And I want you and everyone to listen. Whenever I make a decision, if I'm the only vote yes or the only vote no, I use my moral compass. Is this going to help the city? Is this going to help the residents? Is this going to help the students?
Well, Mike, I'm with you. I always say, when you please everybody, something is wrong with you.
Yeah, if everyone likes you, you're doing something wrong.
You're doing something wrong.
Exactly.
That's what I tell people all the time,
Right.
and I stand by it. Now, what about the PBA president? Like, is that any type of a conflict, and what is it between your office and his office, Kit Olson?
I don't know. I'm not sure there is any issues, at least on my end. I know that there's a standing directive. If any official, union official, calls this office, they have priority. Even during the budget time, I met with bigger unions, small unions, and I can tell you, to my knowledge, he has never reached to this office and has not gotten a call back. And it's a standing directive. If I'm union strong and I'm a friend of labor, if you support me or don't support me, his door is always open. If he wants to talk to me or talk about any police issue, I'm always here for conversation. If you remember, I said I want to build bridges, not walls.
Correct. Laurie Eugenio supports you, say, Mike, go Mike, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Mike, let me tell you, I received an email the other day in regards to dumping, and Sai is saying that if you see a dumping and you call and that results in a conviction, you get, I think it's $500, $1,000.
We recently increased the fines. I think it's more than 1,000. I could get that information. I think it's maybe 5,000 for a repeat, but I'll get that information. But I know we increased the fines.
But the problem is
yes.
this. Yes, there is laws, there is enforcement. But the people who are calling, and I can tell you specific offline because we don't want to mention the person's name,
Sure.
the result was an arrest.
Was an arrest?
Was.
So somebody called up about
Somebody
a dumper?
called, somebody was dumping, police arrived at the time that they were dumping, they were arrested, but they plead to a minor thing because it seems like the interest was just on a plea, on a guilty plea of whatever it was. So the person did not receive the award that it was promised. So
That's wrong.
it is wrong, and what's happening is a lot of people are not calling because now they know if they call, the reward is not given.
Well, you know what? I'm going to pull out the law because the law was already in place about dumping. Even before I took office, what we made it, and I've been very vocal about the dumping, in the city. I want to see what it exactly states. Does it require? Many times you see something called an arrest and a conviction, or many times is it just an arrest? Unfortunately, the dumping in this city has gotten so much out of hand that the dumpers think they could get away with it. If it leads to an arrest, I would like to see if there's a tip that leads to an arrest. I'll be willing to look at that local law that calls for it, where a conviction is not required. Dumpers need to know you can't dump on Yonkers and you can't get away from it. I could give you some hot spots, a couple of blocks away from here. The DPW that does a great job. They'll send a crew out at nighttime. There's another mattress or a chair or a headboard. It's got to come to an end. And I think how we do that is through citizen engagement. And the citizens need to know that if they call in, that the city's going to live up to its end of the bargain.
That's exactly right.
But offline, let's talk about it.
Let's talk.
Yes.
But that's exactly right. The city should pay up those rewards.
Absolutely.
Now, just because the city decides to lower or make maybe the person, accept a plea bargain of whatever else, now we're not going to give you the reward because he wasn't convicted of dumping. So that's technicality.
No. It's what I would say. Now, again, when I come into this building, I don't take off my lawyer hat. And many times, most cases, criminal or civil, get settled out. The criminal cases, civil cases. So what the law department or what they do in city court shouldn't affect what happens. If you were arrested for some kind of dumping crime, be it a misdemeanor or a felony, and that's the charge, but then it gets pled down in city court for various reasons, first time offense or such, that shouldn't affect it. But that's something that we'll look into then.
Saba Schlemwet, Mike, one of the most honest men and a big help to the city of Yonkers. We support him all the way.
Thank you so much.
I guess the majority of people out there are happy now.
Then I'm trying.
I guess if it matters to you,
It matters to Mike.
it matters to Mike. And the proof is in the pudding, right?
We tried.
I'm not saying, and I'm not implying that you can do everything that you wanted to do for Yonkers, because you don't own Yonkers. There is things that need to be negotiated, there is votes in the council, but your interest is to help the people of Yonkers and the city that you grew up in. Right?
Correct.
So sometimes you succeed on the things you want, and sometimes you don't.
Well, I don't give up easy. There are certain things that haven't come up to a vote yet, and we're going to work on it. Many times I speak to my colleagues, is this something that you support? And many times the answer is yes, and many times the answer is no. Okay, what language do we need to put in there to make it work? That's what the goal is. This is something you're not happy with, how can we make it? And many times, Ben, I can't support it regardless. You got to respect that. Or if you add this language, I'll support it. And that's how you got to work.
We received an email from a lady who lives at the St. Casimir, Donnell Mitchell.
St. Casimir over
Right
here.
here.
Yeah.
Her concern is there is a whole bunch of buildings in that little street.
Yes, as you go up Elm to the left.
There is 2 or 3 lights. Most of the time there is 2 lights because one is always open. They feel unsafe. They don't feel like they can let their kids go to the store to pick up something because it's dark. We invited the councilwoman to go there. She said that she was going to work very hard on getting some lights there. I believe that she did, but it's still not adequate for the area. They still feel unsafe.
So you're saying that there was no lights, the council person added lights?
But still not enough, according to the residents of that area. They asked me, what can they do to push this a little further and get the lights so they can feel secure in their own area?
Well, I would like to, if it needs more light, we can't put a light on every curb.
I understand. Within reason.
Yeah. If it's something that requires more lighting for safety, because you got to remember something. If it's dark for her or unsafe for her, that means it's probably unsafe for someone else. So, it requires a study.
Well, a whole bunch of neighbors were there talking to the council.
If it requires another light, it goes into the CIP budget. We don't keep light poles in a warehouse somewhere. It's something that needs to be done. It's a safety issue because of people hanging around or this quality of life petty crimes. We'd love to have that foot patrol back there where there's a post on that Elm Street corridor. It's something that's worth looking into. If you could share information with me, I'll be more than happy to do that.
Well, guys, we came to an end. We thank the council president, Mike Khader, for taking the time to talk to us and to talk to you. I think this virtual, the very first, Mike, virtual town hall was a success. A lot of people participated. A lot of people are watching. So thank you. We will try to get this going, invite other people, and I appreciate that your questions were posed in a polite and respectful manner. That is very important because that's the only way we can make this attractive to our elected officials, because they don't come here to be harassed.
Yeah, it's correct. The whole point of this is you want to give vital information and also get issues that are going on, such as a perfect example, the St. Casimir issue. I wasn't aware of it. It's something that's working to do. And I just ask everyone, we don't need a virtual town hall to send me an email or to call. Ben, I got to give the plug. 377-6060 is the office number. Council president at YonkersNY.gov. I'm fairly active on social media. Mike J. Khader. Please follow. We try to keep everyone in tune. We're all citizen legislators.
And don't forget, guys, the council president has a Facebook page that you can like. Okay, you can stay in contact with him. What is that page, Mike? Do you know by memory?
Yeah, it's Mike J. Khader, MikeJKhader. And Ben, I want to let you know, a lot of times, to be quite frank, I don't usually monitor it. I have my office, but if you leave a personal message, have Mike call me, I'll get it.
But my point is, you can go there to see notifications that are, sent out or posted in a general way.
Correct.
So you can get information, and of course, if it matters to you,
it matters to Mike.
So you can call that number 914-377-6060. Call, talk. Mike will listen to you. He always listens to me in the sense of...
I got no choice.
When you stay tuned for more, and thank you very much for watching.
Thank you, everyone. Be well. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Yonkers Voice.
Thank you.